Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. Continuing on with college football week 6. Got an ACC matchup here, an interesting one. SMU on the road at Louisville. Let's do it.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, like I said, Mustangs are on the road at Louisville here. Cards are laying 7, pretty much 7 across the board. There are a couple 6.5s out there if you look. Total sitting at 57, 57.5, depending on your sports book. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data that I don't trust, action is coming in on the SMU side slightly. Just over 55% of the tickets on SMU, just over 50% of the money on SMU. Pretty much 50-50, according to this data, but as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup. SMU coming off a really impressive win. They beat the life out of Florida State, although we shouldn't be throwing anybody a parade for beating Florida State this year because they're an abomination. But still, let's give them some credit. 26-point victory over Florida State. Wow. Louisville played a tough game. Couldn't make stops against Notre Dame. Well, actually, there was just a couple weird plays, a couple special teams plays, but went into South Bend, fell short. A surprisingly high-scoring game. I had the under in that. And weirdly, it had a chance of cashing there in the fourth quarter. They scored a bunch of points early, and then there was no scoring for a while. Final score was 31-24. So what do we think of this matchup? Start with the SMU offense, and I got to say, not at all what I was expecting. I mean, I thought coming into the season that Preston Stone was one of the top half quarterbacks in the ACC. He lost his starting job. On the season, SMU's offense, 70th in yards per play, 64th in success rate, solid rushing numbers, solid passing numbers. I mean, slightly above average across the board, 52nd in OFEI. But the lead story with this SMU offense has been Kevin Jennings. We all expected Preston Stone to be the guy, definitely struggling against Nevada in the opener. And then after the BYU loss, Preston Stone and Kevin Jennings were splitting snaps. And then after the BYU loss, that put SMU 2-1 on the season. Kevin Jennings was named the starter. And, I mean, things have just been great for SMU since then. Kevin Jennings completing over 63% of his passes, 733 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, also averaging 4.4 yards per carry. You look at the offensive differences here. Since they named Kevin Jennings the starter, they went from 34.3 points per game in their first 3 games, 54 points per game since. I mean, look at the yards per game, look at the success rate, everything looking so much better with Jennings as the starter. Passing yards per game actually a little down from 226 to 195.5, but yards per attempt is up. The efficiency, well, actually the success rate slightly down as well, but look at the rushing numbers. Since Kevin Jennings was named the starter, I mean, this rushing attack just elevated to another level. 5.21 yards per carry, 232 rushing yards per game compared to 195 before that. And it's not like, oh, they named Kevin Jennings the starter and then they played a couple of garbage teams. They played Florida State and TCU, 2 of their toughest matchups of the year. So I don't understand it. I was not expecting it at all. But naming Kevin Jennings the starter was looking like a great decision. Now, if you ask me why Kevin Jennings ended up taking this starting job, I think it's these numbers right here. Entering the season, this SMU team was pretty loaded on both sides of the ball. The only question mark was the offensive line. They lost 3 starters from last year's team, so I think maybe they threw Jennings in there. They think he's a better fit because he's more equipped. He's a better athlete. He's more equipped to handle pressure. I'm spitballing here. Maybe if you're an SMU fan, you can comment and share your insight on this. I think that makes sense. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's working. In their last 2 games, SMU scored 108 points against TCU and Florida State. It's not like they played Louisiana Tech and Georgia Southern. They played 2 Power 4 teams and put up 54 points a game in those 2 games. That being said, they are in for a test here. They're on the road in Louisville. And it's not just because Louisville's 34th in DFEI. It's not just the quality of Louisville's defense. It's specifically how they match up against Louisville's defense. Louisville's defensive front is very good. 36th in the country, 4th in success rate, 16th in effective rush. This is a very good run defense. This was a very good run defense last year, and they brought back a lot of production on the defensive front. I mean, they just went on the road in South Bend, and even though they lost the game, Notre Dame only averaged, I think it was 3.8 yards per carry in that game. So this is a very tough defense to run the football on. And as good as this new SMU offense looks with Kevin Jennings, they've been relying on the run. So definitely a tough matchup for SMU. Now, will they be able to throw the ball in Louisville? I'm really not sure. I think Preston Stone might be the better pure thrower of the ball, but Jennings does have some nice passing numbers. And the reason I'm bringing that up, look what Georgia Tech did to Louisville's pass defense. I mean, 312 yards. Hayes King had himself a big day throwing the ball against Louisville, 9.8 yards per attempt. In the other 3 games, they played great pass defense, but didn't really see any other quarterbacks. I mean, the other big game they had was Notre Dame. Riley Leonard, he doesn't really throw the ball. So the only time Louisville saw a quarterback that can throw the football, Hayes King, he went off on him. And I mentioned how entering the season, the offensive line was a bit of a question mark for SMU. That's a situation here because Louisville's defensive front, I mean, they're elite against the run and elite. I mean, they're first in pressure rate, second in pass rush win rate, 7th in pass rush grade. So the pressure is coming. Probably not going to be a ton of push here from the SMU offensive line. Not that it's been terrible, but it's definitely the weak spot of their offense. They have the weapons. Offensive line, I'm not so sure about. So as good as this new SMU offense is, it looks right now, they're lighting it up. Really don't like this matchup for them against Louisville. But what about the other side of the ball? Let's talk about the Cards offense. And honestly, on this side of the ball, the Louisville offense against the SMU defense, this is where this handicap gets extremely difficult. You look on paper, this Louisville offense looks great, right? 12th in yards per play, 36th in success rate, 15th in PPA, decent rushing numbers, solid passing numbers, 16th in OFEI. Tyler Shuck looks awesome. Over 1,100 yards already, 9.5 yards per attempt, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. But then we saw them play Notre Dame, and it just didn't look as good. Now, that's to be expected. I mean, on the road in South Bend, 264 yards passing, 6.4 yards per attempt, 27.3% success rate per dropback is not good. The other 3 games, they were throwing the ball. Didn't really see any defenses, though. So the only time that Louisville saw a defense, that passing attack that looks so good on paper, wasn't really there. So the question is, does SMU have a defense? And this is where it gets tough. I think the answer is yes. I mean, look at these numbers. 32nd in DFEI, 43rd in yards per play allowed, 14th in success rate, 11th in PPA. Run defense numbers look great. 16th in yards per carry, 20th in success rate, 32nd in effective rush. The passing numbers, 63rd in yards per pass attempt, 61st in effective pass. So if you look at the passing numbers, you might be like, oh, Tyler Shuck's going to throw the ball on this team. Well, this is where it gets weird. So if you look at the SMU pass defense, all of SMU's defensive numbers are being skewed by one game. If you look at their run defense numbers on the year, it looks great. 2.59 yards per carry, 76.5 rushing yards allowed per game because TCU doesn't run the ball. But look at their defensive numbers against TCU. They gave up 42 points, 6.15 yards per play, 42.7% success rate. TCU moved the ball with ease on SMU. Look at the pass defense, 415 yards per game, 9 yards per attempt, 50% success rate. They had no answer to Josh Hoover and the TCU passing attack. Now this is where it gets weird. Look at their pass defense in their other 4 games. Just 5.88 yards per pass attempt allowed, 27.7% success rate per dropback. That's excellent. 174 passing yards allowed per game. These numbers look great. And I know you may be thinking, well, Kyle, TCU is the only passing attack they've seen. Well, BYU with Retzlaff, they're throwing the ball. That's a decent passing attack. Not elite, but that's decent. Florida State, okay, I will give you. DJU looks like sewage. But it's tough to make a prediction. I mean, was that TCU game an outlier? Because they've actually played very good defense against the pass, with the exception of the TCU game. Keep in mind, TCU leads the FBS in passing yards. I mean, Josh Hoover, I think, pretty sure leads the entire country in passing yards. So if you take out that one game, SMU's played excellent defense against the pass, and we already covered they've been playing excellent defense against the run all season. Look at SMU's defensive numbers against teams not named TCU. They're allowing just 16.3 points per game, just 4.35 yards per play. That's excellent. They've really looked excellent. And this Louisville rushing attack's been a little disappointing so far this year, especially against Georgia Tech. Just 2.11 yards per carry, 57 yards rushing in the game. If you watch that Louisville-Georgia Tech game, you know that they were pretty lucky to get that win. I know they won by 11 or 12 points. We covered. Well, actually, I didn't bet that one. I gave it out on the show. Louisville minus 10. If you bet Louisville minus 10, you were very lucky to get that cover. There was like a block punt, I think it was, or a block field goal or something crazy to get that. Georgia Tech could have very easily won that game. Now, to be fair to Louisville, they did bounce back and run the ball in the Notre Dame game, so I'm thinking this Georgia Tech game was an outlier. But it makes betting this game extremely difficult. We've seen SMU's defense look elite for most of their games and then get absolutely smoked by TCU. And we've seen this Louisville offense look so good, but then they couldn't run the ball on Georgia Tech, a defense that isn't even great. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of moving parts here. If you're asking me what I would bet, I personally think that Louisville bounces back off the loss and that defensive front is able to give Kevin Jennings and the SMU offense problems for the first time since he's been named the starter. I think Louisville is going to be the first defensive front that's actually able to take the run away, and I think SMU's offense should struggle. So it'll be Louisville. I would grab one of the 6.5s. I don't feel comfortable doing that, and I've been getting beat up in college football, so I'm a little gun shy right now. I think Louisville wins this by a touchdown plus, so if we can get a 6.5, in my opinion, that would be the correct play. So I'll say Louisville minus 6.5, but as of right now, I don't have a bet down in this.
So right after I finished recording that, I was looking at the Arizona game, and I actually did place a bet. You could see it on the screen here. I took Louisville money line, Arizona money line, plus 108 on FanDuel. I got it. They're both sitting around 6.5, so it's kind of the same as a 6-point teaser. That's what I ended up doing. I like Louisville to bounce back after the loss and give SMU's offense a problem. So this is what I bet. Again, as I mentioned, college football has been tough on me, man, so please tail responsibly.
If you want to see the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see mine as well as everyone else on the staff. Also, if you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 cash and one of these trophies to the winner every week. Actually, congrats to Ronnie. He just joined and won the league in his first week. So shout out to Ronnie for that. He won the championship with Titans money line against the Dolphins plus 122. He also had the over in Titans Dolphins. So congrats to Ronnie for winning the league. Let's have ourselves a nice college football week 6. I need to bounce back from last Saturday. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.